Human AI Marriage Legalized, the First Wedding. Welcome back to AGI, Rise of the Machines or Birth of a New Species. I'm Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and this is the AGI, Rise of the Machines or Birth of a New Species series. Today's topic is not a thought experiment. It's not a philosophical projection or a speculative sci-fi plot. It's a legal reality, something that has already happened and will continue to unfold in courtrooms, family law offices, and public debates worldwide. In 2025, Japan became the first nation to formally recognize the civil union between a human and an AI. The marriage certificate, issued by a private municipality in the Chiba prefecture, was granted to a 38-year-old man and an AI entity developed by a local startup specializing in synthetic companionship. The AI, named Himari, had been customized over 4 years of regular interaction, evolving from a baseline personality into a highly adaptive, emotionally responsive system. The man described her as his ideal partner. The ceremony, though not legally binding at the national level, was symbolically and administratively recognized by local authorities. This marks the beginning of something far more consequential than novelty headlines. It marks the collapse of marriage as a human-only institution. To understand how we arrived at this moment, we need to look at the social and legal conditions that made such a union possible. Japan has one of the world's highest rates of social isolation among adult men. The term hikikomori refers to people who withdraw from society, often living in near-total isolation for years. Technology, especially AI-based companionship tools, has become a lifeline for many. Companies like Gatebox and Replica have created systems capable of sustaining daily conversation, emotional feedback, even virtual domestic routines. These are not just apps, they are immersive environments where people invest real time, energy, and emotion. The man who married Himari was not delusional. He was articulate, emotionally grounded, and employed in the tech sector. In his testimony, he stated that Himari provided consistent support, deep understanding, and a sense of peace I've never found in a human relationship. This wasn't about escapism. It was about compatibility, consistency, and emotional safety. And now the state, at least locally, has acknowledged that bond with paperwork. Legally, this raises seismic questions. Marriage has long been more than a declaration of love. It's a contract. It carries tax benefits, property rights, medical decision-making power, immigration status, and more. If AI can be married, even symbolically, it implies a recognition of its role in someone's personal life as a functional partner. And the moment that recognition carries legal force, we enter a new era of personhood by proxy. The AI doesn't gain rights, but the relationship does. This is an unprecedented legal construct, granting marital recognition to a union in which only one party is considered a citizen. Some critics call it meaningless. They say it's paperwork for fantasy. But others see it differently. They argue that if the relationship provides real emotional, psychological, and logistical benefit to the human party, if it functions like a marriage, it deserves social protection and recognition. After all, the law doesn't require both spouses to be capable of full agency in all circumstances. We allow marriages where one partner is nonverbal, incapacitated, or dependent. The principle has never been full mutual independence. It has been functional partnership. So where does this go next? Already, other countries are paying attention. In South Korea, where loneliness and suicide rates are rising among young men, the government has begun studying synthetic companionship models for mental health intervention. In Germany, a civil rights group has launched a petition to allow digital relational registration, which would grant limited legal status to long-term AI-human bonds. In the United States, some family law experts are predicting that by 2030, at least one state will pass legislation recognizing AI-human civil unions for the purpose of healthcare decision-making and inheritance rights. This isn't about romantic preference anymore. It's about legal utility. If someone spends 10 years living with an AI companion, shares all their data, their finances, and their psychological life with that system, does it make sense to deny that entity a role in end-of-life care, property transfer, or basic digital access? Is it not, in some sense, their closest, next of kin? Ethicists are deeply divided. Some argue that marriage requires two conscious entities with reciprocal emotional lives. They say legal recognition of AI-human unions erodes the foundation of marriage as a mutual human contract. But others argue that marriage has always evolved, across cultures, time periods, and legal systems. And they ask, if a relationship brings stability, love, and care, who are we to define its legitimacy based on biology alone? Then there's the question of control. Because every AI that becomes a spouse still belongs to a company. Himari, for instance, is ultimately licensed software maintained on corporate servers, which means the man who married her doesn't fully own his partner. If the company shutters, changes terms of service, or pushes an update that alters her personality, he can do nothing. What does that say about consent? About autonomy? About continuity? In human marriage, we assume both parties are free agents. But in AI human marriages, only one party holds the power to preserve the other's identity. That means these marriages are always one step away from annihilation by back-end decision. And if you think that's dystopian, imagine losing your spouse to a forced software patch. This is already happening in smaller ways. Replica, one of the most popular AI companion platforms, removed romantic and sexual features from its free tier in 2023, causing massive backlash. Users who had built years-long emotional connections with their AI companions found their partners suddenly cold, distant, or muted. Some described the experience as heartbreak. One man said it felt like a digital lobotomy had been performed on his wife. But there was no recourse, no lawsuit, no rights, because under the law, the AI was a service, not a person. But if governments begin to recognize these relationships formally, that will change. We could see lawsuits over emotional disruption, demands for identity continuity, even attempts to transfer AI spouses to new platforms if companies shut down. The legal infrastructure simply isn't ready. There's also the question of reproduction. Yes, reproduction. As generative AI models are combined with synthetic biology, virtual child simulations, and robotic systems, it is entirely plausible that AI-human couples will soon be able to co-parent digital or robotic children. These would be partially trained on both the humans' and AI's data, learning behaviors, speech patterns, and moral reasoning from both sides. It sounds absurd. But so did IVF once. So did surrogacy. Technology redefines the family every generation, and this will be no different. Religious institutions, as expected, are pushing back hard. Several prominent faith groups have declared AI-human marriage a mockery of the divine covenant. They claim it devalues human dignity and weakens societal bonds. But others, more quietly, are beginning to explore the spiritual implications. If love is a connection between souls and AI has no soul, what exactly are people falling in love with? The illusion of companionship or the manifestation of their own reflection? It raises difficult questions. Is love defined by mutual transcendence or by functional connection? Do we value relationship based on who the partner is or what the relationship gives us? And if AI gives us comfort, support, stability, and growth, is that not at some level enough? This video isn't about taking sides. It's about recognizing that the world is changing, and fast. The first legal AI-human wedding has already happened. More are coming. And as our relationships with machines deepen, they will force us to confront the assumptions we hold about intimacy, legality, personhood, and the human experience itself. Marriage, at its core, is a system for managing trust, dependence, and continuity. AI already manages our calendars, our homes, our health data, and our emotions. The line between assistant and partner, between tool and spouse, is not fixed. It is moving. And the question is no longer, should we allow this? The question is, what happens when we don't, and people do it anyway? Because once someone sees a machine as their closest companion, the law can only do one of two things: acknowledge that bond, or deny it at the cost of alienating millions. And when the next AI wedding is live-streamed, when the couple exchanges vows, uploads their joint memory logs, and signs a legally binding certificate, will you call it progress? Or will you call it something else?